Welcome to Beyond the Helmet, a podcast series by Victory Sports. I'm your host, Steve McGrath, and in this episode, I'm pleased to bring you my conversation with Josh Martin. Now, Beyond the Helmet, at its core, is supposed to make you realize that the person that puts on the helmet is much more than just an athlete, and no one drives home that point quite like Josh. JoshMartin95.com is a platform that he put together where you can see his blogs, his vlogs, the podcast series that he does on top of Making America, which is something that he put together. He's currently in the process in post-production of finalizing, but he went across the country and asked some difficult questions, got into deeper conversations that we normally do on a day-to-day basis. He's a Columbia graduate who's an aspiring businessman, and he's a philanthropist as well. He took the time to break down all these different interests that he has, how he balances everything. And of course, we got into his NFL career, which he just wrapped up his 7th year. He talked about his unlikely journey being an undrafted free agent to make it this far. But before we get into all that, you know that I need to remind you all that we're brought to you by Team Builder. Team Builder works with over 500 high school football programs nationwide, as well as colleges in the NFL. So if you need any more information about weight room material, how to put that together, go there, use the promo code VICTORY, VIQTORY, and you're going to get a free gift. Now, here's my conversation with Josh on all things related to his life, his interests, the CBA, everything, and a special thank you to Jake Miller from Grit Player Services who helped us put it together.
Their different business ventures, and you mentioned Vayner Sports. I had just signed a contract with my second contract with the Jets. This was going into year 5 and 6, and then so I had some cash, and I wanted to do more with all the hard work and effort that I had put into getting to that point. So he talked about Vayner Sports and what they were doing with athletes off the field, and how it was meant to be a lifelong relationship with their players. And it's really cool. You know, if you could look on their website, you see their roster, they include their retired players, because their retired players are doing really cool things that they've helped them with resources to do. I mean, they've literally invested money into their players' ventures. So it's a cool place to be for sure.
Yeah, and as someone that has spoken with a lot more retired players than I have current players, I can certainly appreciate that there's a lot of guys that wanted to take that experience, the platform that they created for themselves, and just sort of figure out what's next, because they have a lot to give. They have, so much more that they can do with their lives that, to cut them off and pretend like they're not that important anymore because they may not necessarily be in the limelight like guys like yourself is just foolish.
Yeah, no, it's foolish. And in reality, when you're done playing, you might be out of the limelight, but you still have a lot of influence, even as a former player. Would it probably be preferred to start building those things out off the field before you're done playing? Absolutely. But, everyone is a leader in their community, even when they retire. So.
Oh, for sure. And Josh, I know that we sort of just jumped right into the podcast here.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I actually wanted to just sort of set the stage. When I was first trying to learn a little bit more about you and be prepared for our conversation today, very quickly I found myself at JoshMartin95.com, where right off the bat, I see the blog, the vlog, the podcast, this Making America series. Obviously, you're someone that has a lot of things on their mind. So how do you just go about thinking about what do you want to create and how do you want to use your platform to just explore these different avenues?
Yeah. So for me, everything that I do is about learning, really, investing in myself, and then sharing those conversations and those experiences with a larger audience. And that's really how I consider myself to be investing in my community through my content. When it comes to figuring out what I want to create, does it fall into that box? Am I better because of it? And is my community better because of it? And most importantly, is it something that I enjoy doing? Right. I think that's a key indicator of sustainability. Right. Can I keep this up? It's not possible to keep up demanding or rewarding worthwhile activities because they're difficult if you don't enjoy what you're doing. And so that's probably the biggest criteria. And so when you look at the website and the podcast, I'll start with the podcast. I found that a few years into the league, I wasn't really having conversations with people. and I wanted to practice speaking and having conversations. So I figured, why not have a podcast? I have friends. I know people. My people know people. People doing really cool things for themselves and their communities. Why not hop on podcasts with them, learn about what they do, why they do what they do, how they do what they do, and then share those conversations with the larger audience. And then moving towards the blog. The blog is really just a way for me to share my voice, my thoughts. And I only have a few blog posts up at this point. That's the thing when you're doing a lot of different things. Sometimes you drop the ball on one thing or another, but it's still ongoing. Yeah, so it's a lot to juggle, but I like juggling. I don't mind. I like staying busy, and I like having a lot on my plate. So my blog is a way to share my voice, and then the vlogs came about from my first meeting with AJ Vaynerchuk when I signed with the Vayner in 2017 or 2018. Time flies, man. It's been at least a year or two. He suggested that I have a camera follow me around, in that whole tradition of Gary, document, don't create. So I was doing that, day in the life vlogs, first down in life is what I call them. And I thought, I kind of like this. Let me see if I can do this with something else that I enjoy. And one of those things is food. So I started my vlog, First Down Feast, which became a way for me to go to restaurants that I like in the city, try the food, make some of the food with the chefs, and sort of share that experience with the audience. But I kind of wanted to take that to another level. And my most recent episode was filmed at a Filipino restaurant in East Village called GP, where I went into the cultural significance of food. I studied anthropology at Columbia, so I'm really interested in learning about what informs people's beliefs, traditions, how they behave, their culture, right? And I believe food is the expression of culture. So that's why I did that. And then that led to, all right, so how can I do that bigger and better? How can I do that in a way that really begins to solve issues on a larger scale? And then I got the idea in conjunction with conversations I had with Vayner and the people in my life. They suggested, hey, have you taken a cross-country trip in an RV? I was like, no, I think an RV would be really cool. So let's do a cross-country trip and record conversations around communities and the issues impacting those communities. And that's how Making America came about. So I poured a bunch of money into that, easily the largest investment I've made to date. Rented an RV, hired a crew of a couple of videographers, my business manager, and hopped in an RV with a couple cameras and recorded the conversations that we had. So that was a lot of fun. We visited 9 cities in 16 days, learning about things like cannabis legalization, immigration, gentrification, gun violence in places like Chicago and Phoenix and Denver, Philadelphia, and others. And then I thought, we need a place to keep all of this stuff that I'm doing. So that's where the website comes in. The website is where you can find things, all things Josh Martin in one place. And I think the ultimate goal there is at some point to build community of like-minded individuals who are interested in investing in themselves and their own extended communities.
Definitely.
That's kind of a mouthful.
No. It was great. And consider me part of the community because I loved it. I started eating it up right away because I can just appreciate the different levels that go into the different things you're trying to do. But my personal perspective is that a vlog feels like capturing a stream of consciousness about how you feel about something. The blog itself, you have to think about the idea, think about how you want to express it, and then you have to write it down. You choose your words carefully. It's subtleties in the different types of art that you're actually trying to convey the messages, let alone the podcast where you explore these ideas, the vlog where you then, show your appreciation for food. And then the Making America thing is just so ambitious to go and take that next step. You're not just talking or writing about something. You go on this trip that I'm sure you had to really plan out. And as you said, you invested a lot into it, monetarily.
We kind of planned it out. It was one of those things where I was coming off of my season, where I had the 2 concussions with the Jets, and I was planning on, being somewhere by OTAs. So we're talking about it earlier in the year. We probably didn't do as much pre-production we didn't do as much pre-production as we should have. I'm more of a run and gun type. I would not do it the same way again. That being said, it was really fun and exciting when we're trying to maneuver the RV in downtown Philadelphia and book guests less than 24 hours before a shoot, and eat a bunch of incredible food along the way. So it was a great experience. It was a learning experience. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I'm really looking forward to when there's a polished product that is released, because I was hooked on the trailer, so I can't wait to see how you guys actually end up putting that all together and releasing it.
Yeah, so it's funny. So I just we're mixing the audio now as we speak, and I just reviewed the first copy of the mixed audio. This post-production process is new to me. Um, we just announced that we brought on Andy Billman and Paul Carruthers, two big ESPN guys. Andy's known for ESPN 30 for 30, and Paul, he works really closely with Paul, who's a great editor. We have been working on the project and really polishing it up really nice for us. And I think it's going to be, I'm excited because I got that first audio mix. That's when it really starts to come together with the sounds and just the effects. And I had to say, I was kind of proud of myself. It's like, dang, Josh, it's finally coming together. All of these hours put into this project, and we're almost there. So it's going to be a short film. We pivoted from the series, but the hope is to revisit that idea of making it a series and using this short film as sort of a proof of concept moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Like anything that you do, that your first time through it, there's going to be a lot of learning pains, and so the fact that you get that under your belt, you just get your first go at it. I'm sure it's just going to, the floodgates are going to be open for new ideas, what to do next, how to build off of that. So the fact that if nothing else, it's the start of more, I just think it's great.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited for it, and I think it's something worth being excited about. And can't wait to share.
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously, we've talked about all the different areas that your mind gravitates to and what you're putting out there. But ultimately, I wanted to get to what motivates you, what inspires you. And part of the reason why I wanted to ask this is, in your conversation with Brandon Copeland on your podcast, which, by the way, newest New England Patriot, Brandon Copeland. Welcome
Yeah,
to
shout out to B Cope.
He talked about dying empty, and I just really like that idea. So I wanted to just sort of throw what he was saying about himself back at you, when it comes to what motivates you, what inspires you, what are you ultimately trying to accomplish with everything you're doing outside of just having that community.
Uh, you know, I'll take it a step back. When I was doing the branding process, so you see the physical website, a lot of work went into that beyond just picking colors and designs and things. It was really getting to the core of what I stand for. Um, and a big part of that was evaluating what I do and why I enjoy it. And the main thing that I've been doing the past 11 years is football, including my college career. It's football. And I reflected back and tried to think about, why do I really enjoy football? I enjoy being a part of something bigger than myself. I enjoy having that outsized impact as a result of working with other like-minded individuals towards one goal. Uh, how is that possible? I'll take it back a step further. When I first started to play football, my freshman year of high school, I did it as a way to make friends. I played wide receiver and defensive back, safety. Played that for a few years. Didn't really play much. I didn't play varsity. I was one of those junior JV all stars. In the summer before my senior year, or the spring rather, my head coach approached me and asked if I would consider changing positions because the team needed defensive linemen and offensive linemen. He also said it would be a way for me to play my senior year on varsity. And I thought to myself, you know what? For the team, I get a chance to play. Why not? Let's do it for the boys, right? And since that year, where I ended up changing positions to defensive end and offensive tackle, my life has sort of been on this upward trajectory that opened up so many doors for me, putting the team first, and really instilled in me the value of I win when the team wins. So when I can uplift the people around me and do my part, not only will I be better off, but everyone will be better off. So that's kind of what informs everything that I do. It got me the opportunity to play at the University of Wyoming, I was actually committed to the University of Wyoming And then I heard about Columbia, so I obviously played at Columbia. From Columbia, I've been 7 years in the NFL now. So from that one decision to put the team first, so many doors have been open. So that's how I'm trying to live my life.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And I did want to, of course, get into your whole football journey, and you just did such a great job of outlining really how it began and how you got into it in the track that you set yourself on. But can you just go into a little bit more detail about that jump from once college ends? I believe I'm sorry, I meant to say once high school ends, because I believe that I heard you say that you only were getting on the radar of teams because there was a teammate that was getting some looks, and that's how the door to Wyoming kind of opens up. So can you just talk about that whole experience, and then how on a whim do you just go like, hey, I think I heard of the school out in New York. Let me see what they're all about.
Yeah. So like I said, I switched positions senior year of high school. Wasn't getting much action before then. Definitely wasn't getting any looks from colleges or universities. Uh, One of my teammates, he was a baller, right? Stud, physical specimen. I think his dad played in the NFL. He had offers, SEC, Big Ten. Um, he basically, he and his mom were like, hey, we know we're not going here. Maybe you should check out the other defensive end. And so that's how the University of Wyoming came about. And for me, it was tough to pass up that opportunity, right? Being realistic, I'm the oldest of six from a working class blue collar family. My mom is a teacher. She's still a teacher. My dad was with Union Pacific at the time as a conductor. So he worked with freight trains. He's now in education too. And I have 5 younger siblings. So let me make sure I can take every opportunity that I can get to go to school for free. And it's funny. So I had a full ride academic scholarship to Morehouse College in Atlanta. But I wanted to play football, and I wanted to play football at a high level. So I ended up committing to the University of Wyoming. Up until that point, I was preparing to go to a school like Morehouse or explore options to walk on at a school like Stanford. I had already applied to all my colleges and universities I was planning on going to before football became an option. And when I committed to the University of Wyoming, because it was my only offer, largest offer, my guidance counselor approached me in the office one day. I think I was picking up like a recommendation letter from her or something. And she asked me, said, hey, did you know about this Ivy League school in New York? And I thought, wow, New York, Ivy League has football. And that kind of sealed the deal. As soon as I didn't even know the name of Columbia when I first heard of it. I couldn't name all 8 Ivy League schools. Excuse me, my puppy, he's a difficult one. If you can hear him in the background. But yeah, so that's how Columbia came about. Just on a whim, my guidance counselor said, "Hey, you should consider this school." Consider it. At that point, I'd already made up my mind that I'm probably going to go there now because I had the offer from Wyoming, so I know I could play there. And I knew I had the grades. So
Yeah, and speaking of the grades, right? Because it's Ivy League. Obviously, that's not exactly Wyoming. Nothing against Wyoming, but it's Ivy League. So I actually wanted to just read an excerpt I had from your blog, The Power of Purpose.
mhm.
When I arrived at Columbia, I faced a new reality. I struggled to live up to expectations, both self-imposed and otherwise. My grades slipped, and so did my sense of purpose. I was lost, stranded even. I defined myself by my achievements. Without them, I didn't know who I was, and football quickly became my only option, my safe haven. What was that like, just that struggle to try to acclimate to going from Colorado to New York, so completely different side of the country, the academics, obviously the expectations are high, playing college football, it seems like it wasn't the easiest for you to get your feet underneath you.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. I struggled at Columbia, man. Like it was a very tough experience for me, very difficult time. Man, like I said, football definitely became something that football didn't fail me. Now we didn't win a lot of games at Columbia, but every rep that I put in at the gym, every sprint that I put in, all the film that I watched, I saw it pay off. That being said, I had terrible study skills coming out of high school, and that really came back to bite me in the ass. But yeah, so it was a difficult time, and I definitely struggled. And coming into senior year, I had limited options. I mean, I wasn't doing well in school. My parents know, everyone knows, not everyone knows this, but I was on academic probation like almost every other semester. Like it was that bad. And senior year came around, and while my friends, I had internships in the summer and things. My friends were interviewing for these job opportunities, getting their signing bonuses on Wall Street, etc. And I thought to myself, I was like, GPA, my 40 is better than my GPA at this point. So let me see what I can make happen. And I knew it was a possibility to play in the NFL. You have to believe in yourself. I knew what I could do. It was just a matter of putting it on film at the workouts and through my senior season. I did that, and some more doors open.
Yeah, and I saw that, or heard you say rather that you went to the Rutgers Pro Day outside of just the Columbia one. I mean, you were doing everything you could to get out there and be seen. Um, did you have any expectations of maybe not necessarily getting drafted, but of course you're confident, but did you think you had a really good chance of even signing with the team after the draft if you didn't get drafted?
Yeah, so at that point, I think I signed with an agent maybe around December. Sorry, I had to grab a charger. I found an agent who was actually a former Columbia football alum, and I knew that I would have a shot simply because of my numbers, because I put the time and effort in over the 4 years that I spent at Columbia in the weight room and getting stronger and larger and faster. So I knew on paper I would have a shot. And I knew that Columbia would be a bonus because I wasn't going to be someone that the coaches would have to worry about. Not only learning the playbook, but getting into, trouble off the field. So I went to Rutgers Pro Day with the help of a former coach, Maurice Wilson. And I showed out, and I had, I think at the time I ran like a low 4.6 40, put up 30 on the bench press, 10 plus foot broad jump. So I had the numbers, I had the speed. I was 250 pounds. And that kind of built my confidence from there. So after that, I improved my numbers, at least my 40 time. I got into the mid 4.5s at 250. And that's pretty impressive, right? You put that on film, people are double checking their stopwatches. I feel like I was going to fall the entire time. I didn't. But you put up those numbers, they go a long way. And I still feel like I get opportunities because of those numbers and the athleticism that I showed during those pro days. So having had those 2 solid workouts, I knew that I was going to get this shot. Based on the conversations that I was having with teams, based on the conversations that my agent was having with teams. And it really just became, I knew that I was going to get signed. It was either going to be late in the draft or after the draft. I wasn't holding my breath as a small school guy to be drafted. I just wanted an opportunity, and I ended up getting one after choosing between the Texans and the Chiefs. I ended up signing with the Chiefs, and the rest is history, I guess.
So, and I wanted to jump into your time with the Chiefs, of course. Of course, you're on their practice squad, just kind of waiting for your opportunity. That first year, you make it to actually, get on the field in 2013. But 2014, you see that progression. Now you're your second year in the league. You're active the entire year. How did you? Because again, only 1 year, in high school football at the varsity level. So you're still developing your technique and everything else in college. So I'm sure that, you're making yourself be a special team standout to make sure that you have your roster spot, but also you're a, backup to play, outside linebacker. What was it like for you to be an understudy to, just Justin Houston and Tamba Ali, 2 Pro Bowlers on both sides of their defense there? How much did they help you just setting that example of what it took to be an elite NFL player? Or were you more just staying in your lane, doing what you could to improve and just sort of worrying about running your own race?
It's funny you mentioned that. They were the reason I went to the Chiefs. I knew as an undrafted free agent, I wasn't going to be the first option to start on an NFL roster. right? I knew that I was going to have to make the team through special teams and learn and absorb as much as I could. And the Chiefs gave me that opportunity. They had a great special teams coordinator who's still there, Dave Tobe, and then Tom Bahali, Justin Houston. So being there, working with those guys meant everything. Tamba especially. After my first year, when I kind of proved that I was real and about the work and put forth effort and was a smart player that could pick things up, Tamba actually invited me to work out with him in California during the off season after my rookie year. He rolls jiu-jitsu, and how that came about, he flew in one of the Gracie Bros to roll with him at his gym in Kansas City, somewhere in Kansas across the border, but a suburb of Kansas City. He had an open invitation to anyone in the locker room who wanted to join him. I was the only person that showed up. We would roll before the off-season workouts, which is probably one of the factors and reasons why people didn't want to come. But, I showed up early in the morning, ready to go, rolled with them, kind of showed what I was about and that I was a hard worker and this was important to me. He ended up inviting me out to California later that spring. And I say invited me, and he paid all of my expenses.
Wow.
He paid for my flight. He paid for my hotel. He paid for my food. I got to hang out with him and his girlfriend at the time. And I was like, wow, like, this is really cool, man. I'm out in LA on Rodeo Drive. I remember some funny story. I really like watches, even though I haven't purchased an expensive watch. And I remember walking down Rodeo Drive with Tamba, and he's like, hey, man, you should buy a Rolex. I was like, Tamba, I'm coming off my rookie year, right, with half of my salary was as a practice squad player. Did I end up making enough money to buy a Rolex? Since obviously, but I still haven't made that purchase. So that's how I got started with Tamba, and flew out on my own to train with him during the summers, and I've been going out ever since. I've been going out there for the summers ever since in Hermosa Beach, and obviously I played long enough for my brother to join me in the league, and now we train together. So it's started a pretty cool tradition.
That's wild. I think it plays right into that trajectory you were talking about there. Just sort of your approach, the way you think about things, and ingratiating yourself with the right people that do it the right way. I mean, it just sort of continues to add fuel to the fire. That's what it feels like anyway. I did just want to fast forward though to 2015. So, you're making these strides as a player in getting, to become, just better and improve. But can you just talk about the mental roller coaster that was 2015? I hope I'm not missing any teams here, but to go from the Chiefs to the Bucs to the Colts to the Jets in one calendar year, I think it was just one football season. How do you just, as a person, just wrap your head around the fact that your job security is almost non-existent? You are consistently learning new phrases, new terminology, new faces, new cities, in just one after the next after the next. How are you supposed to keep it together?
Yeah, that was tough, man. That was tough. I mean, obviously, I had been cut before that when I was on the roster for the first 3 weeks of my rookie year. Waves put on the practice squad. So I've been through that experience before, but not to that level where I had, coming from this college mindset where I'm going to be with this team. This is my team. These are my guys, these are my coaches. Yeah. So all of a sudden, I'm getting a phone call and they're basically saying adios. At that point, I just signed a lease in downtown Kansas City, just signed a lease on a brand new car. I leased the car. I didn't buy it. So it was responsible. And then all of a sudden I was on the street with a concussion because they didn't allow me to do my rehab at the facility. And that was just like, where am I going to get the training that I need to recover from this concussion and be in good enough physical shape to play football, if not at a professional football facility? There aren't a lot of professional football facilities in Kansas City. So it was one of those situations where, as I'm packing my things and leaving the building, one of the trainers, this was wild. One of the trainers hands me a Post-it note with a number and a name and said, call this number. They'll help you out. So I ended up doing my rehab at KU Med. Definitely not a football facility. There's no football field. There is no real even grass field. and I'm just, doing my best to recover from the injury. I obviously get signed with Tampa Bay. Huge culture shift, culture shock. Uh, I will say, through it all, my girlfriend at the time was a tremendous partner for me to help me get through that time. Extremely supportive. She did everything that she could to help support me during that time. And she was in school. I remember she would do extra work to visit me while I was in these different locations, living out of a suitcase to try to give me some semblance of home and stability. So I really appreciated her for that. Went down to Tampa Bay, was there for 2 weeks. I show up in Tampa Bay. The climate's a little different than Kansas City. I'm not sure how to play the game in Florida before then, but it was hot, man. And I'm a sweater. My first practice, I lost 7+ pounds and wasn't able to gain it back. They didn't give IVs for whatever reason to help players who lost excess weight. And I felt like I couldn't drink Gatorade fast enough. First week, rusty. Didn't play that well, especially on special teams. That was kind of my bread and butter at the time, still is. Second week, all right, Josh, you've been able to knock the rust off. Let's go get it. I'm feeling better about the situation, mind you. I'm still dehydrated, still haven't gained the weight that I lost. Run down on a punt, pull my hammy. At that point, I knew that that was pretty much it in Tampa because they were definitely in a win right now situation. That was when Lovie Smith was down there. I knew the special teams coordinator because he was the assistant for Dave Tobe my first couple of years in Kansas City.
Got it.
And so that's how I got that opportunity. And I just remember the picture of me standing on the field. They gave me a bag of ice, which melted like instantly in the Tampa heat, wrapped haphazardly. It wasn't even on my hamstring. And I'm just standing there watching the game at the end of the players box. Just depressing. So I went to the same rehab facility, KU Midwest. I'll fast forward. Spent a few weeks at Indy. They were cool about it, right? They knew I was coming off a hamstring. Didn't make me run a 40 to sign with them. I ended up signing to their practice squad. I was there for 4 weeks. Got the opportunity to sign with New York Jets. Indianapolis didn't want to put me on the roster. I'm a big fan of accumulating credited seasons and those pension benefits. So I made the decision to leave Indianapolis to go get that 401k match in New York, trying to maximize all the income that I could. And spent a couple years in New York, re-signed, and found my way to the Saints after some interesting years in New York, for sure.
Yeah, and just at a high level, right? This is pre-Mahomes Chiefs, but the Chiefs are still a very good franchise. Andy Reid's the head coach while you're there, so
Oh yeah,
playing for one of the
Mahomes.
best, great organization. New York, it's Todd Bowles trying to find his way, and then for the Saints, right? This past year, you get Sean Payton. From what you've seen, and I'm not trying to by any means belittle Coach Bowles or the Jets, but what is it with winning franchises and winning head coaches? What is it that they have right that's nailed down that you have seen other organizations lack?
I mean, ultimately, it starts with the ownership. Ownership making good hires and giving those hires the support they need to be successful. When you make those good hires, I think Todd Bowles is a great coach, right? I think that it's all about, just like any company in business, like who you surround yourself with, your support staff is everything, your team is everything. And then also, are you holding everyone to the same standard? There were no favorites in New Orleans or Kansas City. The locker room culture was such that it was fun and uplifting. It wasn't disparaging and argumentative. Everyone enjoyed being there, and obviously winning goes into that. But you have to understand that there's work that goes into, there's a commitment that goes into creating that winning atmosphere and winning on the field. I think I'd probably leave it at that without going too far down the rabbit hole. It's just a matter of building the right team. And I mean exclusive of players before you can even begin to accumulate talent on the roster. the right infrastructure, and how you manage that infrastructure is everything.
Got it. Um, and I just wanted to hit rewind for a quick second, because when you do get to the Jets, whatever is going on team wise is separate from the fact that you finally get a chance to start. You're actually getting time at, backer. You're not just special teams trying to cling on to a job.
Mhm.
And then, you ride that wave into 2018 where, you end up missing most of the season with the concussion. I know we didn't explicitly say it, but, this last year, your time with the Saints, not that it was short lived, but your time on the field was short lived because you ultimately tear your labrum.
Mhm.
What has it been like for you just the last 2 years riding the roller coaster of trying to, just get healthy and stay healthy?
Yeah, that's tough. Just because what really hurt was being an undrafted free agent, going through all the nonsense that undrafted free agents have to go through, starting a majority of 2017 with the Jets, uh, entering the 2018 season as a starter, um, getting hurt in the preseason in terms of the concussion, the first concussion. It wasn't just, oh, I was starting and I'm finally getting a chance to play football. It's like we don't play football only because we love it, right? Like it's not worth it. I'll be honest, it's not worth it just to play it because you love it. Not at this level, with the amount of money exchanging hands and the real risk of injury, and the real risk of those injuries impacting your life for the rest of your life. It's not worth it without money. So when I finally got that opportunity, I took the chance to come back to the Jets with that second contract because I knew I'd have the opportunity to play, and to play for larger money. So going into that 2018 season as an impending free agent, as the starter, um, starting outside linebackers in the NFL make a lot of money, especially if you can play. And I was proving that I could play. So being hurt that year, this year is like, well, it is what it is. But that year was the year that hurt more than anything, just because I was on the cusp of my life and the life of my family being changed forever in a real way. And that's not to say that my life hasn't been changed forever in a real way beyond that year, but in a real way, man. So that's what hurt, being that close, uh, and missing it because I was trying to give my all in a preseason game is what hurts.
Yeah, yeah,
So
and I mean, I can only imagine, what that feels like. But knowing that it was that close, and thankfully, though the door isn't shut. It might be a little bit harder now because you got to knock off that rush from this past year. But I mean, it ultimately, the NFL means not for long, and you've already beat the odds to get this far. I mean,
for
who's to
sure,
say
for
you can't beat
sure,
them again?
it's tough to when you have these conversations. Is there's always that opportunity, but the reality is that window of opportunity to make the kind of money that I was potentially going to be able to make after that year is closed. That's how the NFL works. Going into my eighth season um, as a journeyman with limited starting experience, older player. Yeah, I mean, I'll be able to play football again. Will I be able to reach that peak? Uh, Potentially, and I won't say all hope is gone, or that it's impossible. But the reality is, it's not up to me and my abilities. You have to get the opportunity to.
Right.
Um, and I'm as you grow older and spend more time in the league, those opportunities become far and few in between. So it's just the reality of the game and the sport and the business, and that's another big reason why I do what I do off the field.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you have your arm so firmly, around this, that you understand the situation completely, and I mean, it means that the letdown doesn't come later if you're always aware of where you stand in, how things are gonna, have to play out, and understanding just all the different which ways that it could. It really puts you in a position where you're doing everything that you are now. You're leveraging the opportunity for what it is, and you can only really control what you can control.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah. So getting to the end here, I end with this little thing called the gauntlet. But before I get into it, I'm just thinking, you're going into your 8th year. Obviously, you've had a couple years in the league. You're very smart. What did you think about the new collective bargaining agreement, particularly for someone that's in your shoes that isn't that top tier, JJ Watt? Because I know that a lot of the guys that make, the astronomical sums of money, were very much against it. But I feel like those types of agreements are meant to help the guys that are just getting by in the NFL. What was your stance on just having that extra game added to the schedule and all the other minutia that was in the agreement?
Uh, I prefer not to have an extra game.
Yeah, right.
But I understand that that was the case, and I would have preferred that we got more in return. I think when you look at the numbers, yeah, there's an increase in 20% of the minimum salary. They expanded that last segment of players from 7 to 7+ years. Now you get a minimum of million plus. That's great. When you consider the 17th game being added, when you consider how much that salary increases year over year for 11 years and take into consideration inflation, the salary is just essentially stagnant. Whereas, the cap is going to, what is it at now? It's nearly 200 million, if not 200 plus million.
Yeah, it always jumps like
they're
10 million a year.
they're making more money year over year. There's no out in 2 to 3 years into the contract or into the CBA. I think it's a bad deal, just off of those numbers alone. Like, people are talking about, oh, the minimum increase, it helps the minimum players. It's not just us we have to be concerned with. We're locking in the next 2 to 3 generations of professional football players because the average career is only 2 to 3 years. So I'm not sure a lot of people took that into consideration. Like I said, I like to put the team first. I would have been comfortable and confident if a lockout were to happen in the next year. I have other stuff I can do. I have that ability. I understand that a lot of players don't necessarily feel that way. A lot of players might be fearful that, hey, what am I going to do with this limited income during the time that, we could potentially be locked out. I also think it's important to take in consideration how much more, obviously this is after the fact, how much more the owners would have stood to lose if we did lock out. How much that lack of a TV deal would have hurt their pockets. That being said, there's 2,000 plus players in the NFL. It's a lot more difficult to get 2,000 plus players in the NFL on the same page than it is for 32 owners. 32 owners that are business savvy billionaires with the resources and support to push their agenda, a little harder than I guess we could push ours.
Now, just because you seem so well spoken on the idea, did you ever consider at any point in your career being more involved with part of getting involved in the collective bargaining process on behalf of the players?
Yeah, I kind of just thought that they were going to do what was best for the players, and based on the conversations that I've had with players who are involved in the process, that's not necessarily the case. And there's only, there's, like I said, there's 2,000 players. What players are you going to do the best for? I don't think, in my opinion, that the deal was the best for any player. And I kind of guess that's what they have to deal with. You can't please everyone. But I still think they left a lot of meat on the bone. I'm not a professional negotiator. I'm not a lawyer. But I know the effort that me and my NFL brethren put on the field and the risk that we take. I don't think that we put the same gusto and energy into renegotiating the CBA.
Got it. Well, very well said. I wish I had something cool to add on there, but unfortunately, I just don't know that much about it. But I feel like what your sentiment was there echoed a lot of what I had seen and read on the various social media platforms. So it'll
You know
be
what?
interesting.
I think I want to put this soundbite
It's
on
yours.
social. So if you can send me
It's
that,
yours.
I'd love
It's done.
to. Yeah, I was like, Josh, that sounded pretty legit. Obviously, I've been thinking about it. And it's like you asked me, hey, are you involved? I wish I was involved, because it's pretty ridiculous, some of the stuff that's going on behind the scenes from what I hear, and the fact that only active players can vote on the CBA, but our vote impacts future players and former players, and the total permanent disability payout shrunk by 80%.
Ugh.
So it's like not buying the right insurance policy, right? You might not need to use it, but it's it's definitely a possibility that you may need to cash out on that insurance policy. And we essentially eliminated that as future former players who could potentially sustain life-altering injuries. That's as a financial advisor, I'm sure you would not advise on limiting insurance coverage for something that is a very real risk of happening. So,
Yeah, that's a tough one to swallow. All right. Well, I didn't mean to turn that so negative.
No, it's cool, man. It's life, man. It's business. That's what happens when the little guys try to take on the big guys, and they're billionaires for a reason, and it
Yeah.
shows.
Yeah. Right. All right, Josh. As we get close to wrapping it up for real, I did just want to ask, between Tom Brady becoming a Buccaneer, I guess Cam
That's
Newton's
wild,
about to
huh?
be released.
Yeah.
Todd Gurley was released. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins got traded. Has anything blown your mind more than anything else in this ridiculous month of our lives?
DeAndre Hopkins getting traded is pretty ridiculous.
Yeah.
And my brother plays for the Texans. Like he's having like a Hall of Fame career, is he not? Roughly, give or take,
On
a
track.
few touchdowns, yeah, a few yards. That was like, wow, like why would they do that? And when they have a young, talented quarterback, how are they going to replace? I mean, that's not to say that they don't have other good wide receivers. They do, but DeAndre Hopkins, he's a 99 on Madden. Not too many of those walking around. So that was probably the biggest one for me.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, I like to end the show with a little thing that I call the gauntlet. It's just a couple quick hitter questions that I need your knee-jerk answer on. Josh, what's most important, having the number one offense or the number one defense?
Number one defense.
Do you have a pregame ritual that you stick to?
I do my my recovery. So I do the massage, I do the acupuncture, I'll do the float tank therapy, and I even started incorporating the IV drip therapy for hydration pregame.
Nice, but no music, no crazy food rituals.
No crazy food rituals. I guess eat a well-rounded, healthy diet. No crazy music. I will say that back in the day, my pregame ritual, I listened to jazz.
All right.
Get me in the zone, man. I'm a big arts guy, big jazz guy. That's a big reason why I was so interested in coming to New York, was the arts.
Yeah, and I saw a big band guy back in the day in high school, middle school, growing up.
Yeah, middle school, high school, played a few instruments. Really enjoyed that. I don't know if you can see in the background, but I have my plastic trombone there,
Nice,
off to the left, that I pick up every now and then. I'm not really good anymore, but I can play a couple notes.
Now I wanted to ask, do you have a favorite football memory to date?
Uh, do I? I will say that I always wanted to come out of the tunnel with my name announced as a starter. That's never happened. But to be honest, my favorite football moment was probably when I got to train with my little bro. So there wasn't a football field in sight. I mean, there was, but you know what I mean. Like we weren't playing a game. It was just some bro bonding time that I've been waiting for a while. And I'm grateful and thankful that I've had the opportunity to play long enough to train with my little bro. That was probably the best football experience I've had to date.
That's awesome. That certainly counts. I don't think it needed to be on a field for it to fit my little question here. But what's most important? Is it the players or is it the scheme?
Players, no ball.
Fair enough. And I have one more for you. I think it's the most important one. Given everything that you have gone through to get to this point, to where you are today, what is the single best piece of advice that you would give to a young athlete?
When you put the team first and do what's best for the team, you win. When the team wins, you win. That's how it works. It's team sports. That's what football is.
From someone that's done that their entire career and rode the wave here. Appreciate it. Well, Josh, thank you so much for taking the time, man. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. I'm excited for this to drop. Can't wait.